Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Stop, Collaborate, and Listen, the podcast where we have honest conversations about eating disorders, recovery, movement, and all the ways that you can build a healthier relationship with food and our bodies.
So today's episode is part of our summer movement series, where we're exploring different ways that people can reconnect with movement beyond burning calories, focusing on weight loss, or changing their bodies. So summer is often a time where people start to train for races or spend longer days hiking, biking, being outside, trying new outdoor activities, or simply moving more. And all of those things make fueling even more important, which is why today's episode is focused on fueling for endurance exercise.
Yes, I'm super excited for this one. I know Allison and I both have clients that do running, races, things like that. So I think it's going to be a great episode. Today, we're joined by two guests with perspectives that actually complement each other very, very well. We've got Amy Jordan. She is a therapist, a runner, a yoga teacher, and owner of Peak Wellness Therapy. And she specializes in helping people navigate movement during eating disorder recovery, which we'd love to hear. And we're also joined by Sierra Siebenlist. She is a elite gravel cyclist, elementary special education teacher, and the team leader for Oliver Winery women's cycling team. And she recently completed an incredible 200-mile gravel race, which I'm hoping she tells us about because that sounds incredible. And I don't know if I can ever do that. So welcome to Sierra and Jordan.
Thank you.
Thank you both for being here.
Happy to be here.
Well, let's start off with Amy and Sierra, with you both introducing yourself. Tell our listeners just a little bit about you, important things to know, and then we'll dive into our conversation.
Yeah. My name's Amy Jordan. Like you said, owner of Peak Wellness Therapy. I've been working with eating disorders for going on about 10 years now. So I started in 2017, and I have worked at every level of care minus inpatient. So I started in residential, moved down to partial hospitalization, intensive outpatient, went to a group practice outpatient, and then opened my own practice. So I've really seen the gamut of eating disorders. And I've been an athlete my whole life. I did competitive gymnastics for a long time. And then in high school, ran cross country and track kind of casually, after high school, kind of took a little, I don't want to say hiatus, but I took a little time to kind of figure out what does movement look like in my life, because competitive gymnastics was very restrictive, and high school sports, I think, can sometimes have that edge to it as well. So picked up running, got my yoga teacher training certificate in 2018. And at that point, I was still working in residential and kind of thought, I want to find a way that we can encourage movement rather than always seeing movement as an urge fueled by the eating disorder. So it took me a couple years of practice to sort of figure out how to marry these things. But now that I am running my own marathons and I've learned how to fuel my own body really well, I have really established this sort of niche of how can I be this person that really encourages exercise alongside the eating disorder recovery, rather than saying that you must be fully recovered before you get to move your body.
Over here snapping, because yes, love that so much. Yeah. Anybody who's listening and knows about eating disorders, you know that exercise, is pretty, I won't say non-existent, but there are a lot of barriers to that. So I love that that's your whole practice. That's so cool.
Yep. All right. So I am Sierra Siebenlist. The easiest part about me to tell you is actually my real job. So I am an elementary special education teacher going into, my 17th year of teaching. I have always worked in special education, sometimes elementary, sometimes middle school, but I do really like the special education side of teaching. That's kind of my sweet spot. So then on the other side, I focus on gravel cycling as well as some road racing. I've done a little bit of different types of cycling my whole life. My family was very into biking since I can remember. So I've kind of always done it. And I raced locally, regionally, nationally, at the world level, and then also amateur. I wouldn't say I went full professional, but kind of different levels of professional racing, elite racing. And the one thing that you all should know is that the lines can be a little blurred for women cyclists. as far as like the different levels. So there are professional cyclists, of course, especially if you look at like world tour athletes. But if you kind of bring it down to more like national level stuff, like you can be, a full time working person and also be, what you would call pro. I don't typically put myself in the professional category anymore. I'm more of like a high level kind of amateur racer. But yeah, so I do that, and then I also run a women's cycling team. Currently, our title sponsor that's new this year is Oliver Winery. So we have kind of a wide range of athletes who are, some older, some younger, some very experienced, some new to the sport, and kind of everything in between. So we do mostly road and gravel racing, but also some track racing, mountain bike. And yeah, we're really just focused on women supporting women and kind of creating like a healthy culture in the community, giving back to the support, and really trying to make an inclusive space for other women because it's cycling can be really hard to get into, one, but also a little bit, I want to say like catty as far like on the women's side. But I do feel like it's kinda gotten better over the years, but we just try to kind of lessen that and, be welcoming and support each other and other women.
Yeah. Yes, thank you so much for
So cool.
sharing. And I have so many questions about gravel racing versus like, do you need a special bike? Are you just spinning out all the time? Is it little gravel, big gravel?
Yeah, so I'll try and make it short, but that is kind of like, yeah, a loaded question. Gravel racing, it's really a wide variety. So there is a special bike. I would say it's, in between a road bike and a mountain bike. So it's going to look more like a road bike with like the drop style like curved bars, but it is going to have more like mountain bike type of tires and wheels, a little bit more like heavy duty than a road bike and meant to handle the off-road gravel. And yeah, as far as the gravel style, it can be little gravel, big gravel, sometimes big rocks, sometimes a lot of mud. There is some pavement mixed in there too. It's just like it varies from every race that you go to. So like you get an experience almost every a different experience every time you race, which I think is one of the things I really like about it. There's just nothing. It's never the same. So keeps things interesting.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that great overview,
Yeah.
answering lots of my questions.
Okay, well, let's dive in. Maybe let's start with Sierra can talk to us a little bit about maybe misconceptions about endurance racing, like what does it actually require? And then Amy, we would love for you to kind of piggyback off of that and talk about why endurance sports can be difficult in eating disorder recovery.
I'll start with some misconceptions of endurance athletes from my perspective. So I think that a lot of times, outsiders feel like as an endurance athlete, we're just like skinny and really good at doing something for a long time. And it's like just natural. We just either, jump on the bike, in my case, and just go forever, or runners, you just put on your shoes and go. And it's like just easy. But it takes so much more than that, so much behind the scenes specifically to like gravel racing and doing, these long distance races, 100-mile, 200-mile stuff. It's so much planning on the back end, and not just planning for the one race day, but also how do you figure out what your body needs to go that far, and how do you balance what your body needs and like kind of adjust based on what your body can handle or not handle, and then also balancing that with the training aspect. So it's not like training for a 200-mile race. You're not going to go out and do multiple 200-mile days, because that is just going to set you backwards, and the recovery time is not going to be beneficial to your actual race. So you don't have that many opportunities to plan out all the things that you need to eat, or to change your plan if something doesn't work. So just all of the things behind the scene, and that's not even to mention, setting up your bike and what things do you need for your bike, or what extra supplies do you need, or what does your support system look like? Who's going to be feeding you or fixing stuff at aid stations, and just how do you manage all of that? So it's just so much more, I think, than what people realize. We're not just super talented people like going out to ride or going out to run. We work really hard at this. So it's a lot.
Yeah, man, I am like thinking about all of the days and weeks and groceries and things that, I love that you compared running to biking with. I'm sure there's a lot of things with shoes and, your belt, and also with a bike. Oh my God, all of the maintenance that goes into like a vehicle kind of that you're using
Yeah.
for major transportation. 200 miles is a long way. So I of course want to talk to you about fueling. What is it like to fuel for something like this? But what do you feel like has been the most surprising aspect about eating for these really intense long endurance events?
Yeah. I have learned so much in the past, I would say mostly in the past couple of years. So with this 200-mile race that I completed this year, last year I attempted and did not finish. Sorry. And then the 2 years before that, I had done the 100-mile version of the race, and I've done a few other longer distance races. So what I have learned kind of over time, like, I when I was probably 10 years younger or even more than that, like, I'd go out with my friends and ride, and, we kind of just you just ride until you, like, die, basically, like, so I don't know if the term bonking is the same in running as it is in cycling, but we
Uh-huh.
use this term
Uh-huh.
bonking, right? So, like, you completely die, you have no more gas left, you didn't fuel properly or whatever it is. But, back then we'd like ride until we bonked basically, and we didn't always have food in our pockets, or like we weren't always stopping to refuel whatever. It'd just be like you just went out and rode and, like, kind of killed yourself on the bike. And that was part of the training. And like now there's so much science and research and, trying all these different things that you don't want to do that, first of all, but and you also don't have to. So I've learned a lot about what my body will accept and what it won't accept. I usually fuel mostly on different drink mixes that are like high carbs, or gels. And sometimes I'll mix in some chews or even some real food that I can eat quickly, like at an aid station. So I've also learned that, like, what you need for a 50-mile race versus a 100-mile race versus 200 miles is very different. So you could go and do a 50-mile race, and, really you could do it with just water if you wanted to. I wouldn't really recommend it. Like, I don't think that's going to be super beneficial, especially if you want to go do something the next day. But you could do it and you could make it. For a 100-mile race, it's going to look a little bit different. But if your body can't take anymore after, I would say, like mile 70 or so, you can finish the race without like forcing more into your body and, be at that like bonk state by the end. But knowing that you only have 100 miles versus 200 is just a huge difference. Like, it just opened my eyes. Like, I can, the 100-mile just seems so easy now. Like, I could do it without carefully planning things. But the 200 is just a whole different ball game. Like, my mom helped me at the aid station, so it got down to like a science. Like, I need this bag at this checkpoint and this bag at this checkpoint, these bottles here and these bottles here. And then I had a plan to like eat some real food also. So again, with that planning aspect, just fine tuning what you need, because a lot goes into it. Like I said before, right? A lot of time, a lot of money, and you don't want to blow it just because you could have planned that one thing a little better. Is there more you want me to answer?
No, that was fabulous. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just nodding along because while running and cycling, I think, are so different, there's so many parallels, right? And I think even just like I know we can't draw a direct parallel, but the way that you're talking about how like 100 miler is now nothing compared to the 200, it's kind of how I feel with like a half marathon versus a full, right? I've done so many halves in my life before I really knew what I know now. I don't think I fueled like my first 5 half marathons that I did when I was like in college or like post grad. Now I ran 10 miles last night and I took 3 gels in a 10-mile run because I have a marathon in October and I'm training my stomach to try to be able to take down more and more carbs. And could you, same thing like you said, like, could you go out and run a half marathon not fueled? You sure could. Would it feel great? No. But like, could you go out and run a marathon and not fuel that? No, like you really, really shouldn't.
I'm so glad you guys are both talking about that because I think that that is something, of course, with Jen and I working, Amy, you as well, like working with eating disorders. I think we hear this so often as like, whether, regardless of the severity, it's like, oh, I feel fine. It's like, okay, just because you survived that thing and you didn't bonk, is that the term?
Uh-huh.
Love it. Just because like you didn't die doesn't mean you're like thriving and you're like peak
Yes.
performance and feeling your best. And just because you did it doesn't mean like you're invincible and you should continue that experiment. There are other experiments with more carbs and more planning
Yes.
that might serve you
Yes.
better. So thank you guys for highlighting
Yeah,
that.
and something I would add to that too when it comes to marathon running or cycling and like eating disorder recovery, something that I always say to my clients is like, so sometimes when you're in eating disorder recovery, you don't necessarily want to eat or you're not necessarily hungry. And most of the time when I am doing a long run, I'm not hungry for the 30 grams of carbs I'm about to take, but that doesn't mean that that isn't what my body needs. Right. And so I think a lot of times in recovery, we just hear like, oh, but I'm not hungry for that amount of food. I don't want that amount of food. And whether it's just recovering for life or running a marathon or a bike race, I think sometimes it's an important reminder that like we love food for joy. We love food because we're hungry, but we also have fuel like just basically because our bodies need it. And we have to honor that part of food and fuel as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Got me
totally.
snapping again over here. Yes. Yes. I feel like clients can hear that over and over and over and over again, right? Like
Yeah.
it's so important. Can you talk to us a little bit about I I'm curious like how you work with clients around movement or even just like running specifically, like in recovery or like in recovery spaces. Like what are you noticing?
Yep. Yeah. I will say, I always feel the need to say this, and I hope as dietitians you appreciate this, that caveat is always you must be medically stable, right? Like I'm never going to meet with somebody who should be in res and I'm like, hey, let's go run a marathon. So I'm always first and foremost, are you working with a dietitian? Have your labs been looked at? Are you healthy enough for exercise? That's like step one, right? Beyond that, though, I think to me, most important thing is intentionality. So we see this so often in eating disorders that we are planned, rigid, perfectionistic. And I think for better or for worse, these are traits of many endurance athletes. And so I think that this is one of those things that can be such a gray area. But the most important thing to me is, do you need to go out and run 10 miles today because your eating disorder said you must go and run 10 miles? Or does running feel really good in your body? And let me add the caveat that running does not always feel good in my body as I'm like training for this marathon right now. Not every run feels good. So don't think that I'm saying every run should feel good. And it gets a little blurry when you are training for something, but pulling it back to somebody in recovery, I think before you have a race on the calendar, we should really be looking at like, does your body feel good when you run? Does it really provide these endorphins that afterward you're like, you know what? I feel a little bit better. Maybe I have a little bit less anxiety. This is helping me sleep better. do you have a strong community that you run with, right? For me, I run not every run, but at least once a week, I run with friends, right? And so that's a really big value of mine that I get to like see my people and we get to do our run together. And so it all comes down to like, what is your why and why are you doing this? If you can't come up with a why other than I am having this strong urge to run X amount of miles, and that is the only way that I'm going to get my food today. Alarm bells are going off for me, and I'm saying, let's really reassess what role movement is playing in your life.
That was not the answer I expected, but absolutely love it. It makes so much sense. And the thing that I'm noticing too, that both you talked about is like, what does your support system look like and your community
Mhm.
look like, which I think is beautiful. Like we've been talking about that throughout our summer movement series, just the power and necessity of community. Both of you have talked about almost this idea of like having to figure out what your body needs, having some runs or cycling sessions that maybe didn't feel that good. Can you talk to us a little bit about that process? I think, and I know in my work with clients, it's like we want to try it and we want to have it figured out and we want it to be okay and we're done. But it often takes time and experimentation. So can either or both of you kind of speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, I'll start. Just I'll kind of like go back to my experience last year. So when I was training for this 200-mile race, I had a like I wasn't sure if I could do the 200 miles. Like I'd never signed up for something that I didn't already know that I could do. So that in itself was a whole new experience for me. But like it as far as the fueling and planning all that out, like it went really well in my training last year. I trained my gut. I built up, to take X amount of carbs per hour, all the things. I did my one really long ride about a month before the race, and that long ride was 140 miles, and everything went great. Like I had no problems. Like I had a plan, I followed the plan. When I got home, we even I showered and we went out and did something. And then and my boyfriend, what he was even like, "What? Like I've seen you more dead, after like 3-hour rides, and like you got back today and it was like you it was like nothing." He was like, "Yeah, I don't know." Then so when I did that, I thought everything was, perfect. I was ready for the race. And then I stopped thinking about what actually happened at the race, why I didn't finish it, but something happened. I don't necessarily think it was 100% related to fueling, but something went wrong and I couldn't finish. I made it to about mile 112, and like my stomach was just in knots, and I got to the point I just couldn't even lean over my bike to continue. So I had to bail, and then when I went for it again this year, I still kind of followed a similar plan, training my gut, like how do I work up to taking in all the carbs that I need, also trying to figure out, can I take more than that, so that I don't fail, trying a few different drink mixes and gels. And then again, I did a long ride like I had done last year, and it did not go well. And I feel like it's really hard because like you only really have one chance at kind of like the level that I'm at anyway. If you're a professional racer, you're going to have more opportunities and more experience, more time for recovery, more people helping you. But in my experience, I really only had, that one chance to try it out with a long run or a long ride. And then it when it didn't go well, I had to kind of take a step back and I got back from that 140-mile ride and I was just dead. I was like, I don't even want to eat anything. I know I need to eat something, but like I need a minute before I can, have dinner or whatever. And so at that point I had to kind of like just take a step back and reassess where I was at. I talked to my coach a little bit and did a little bit more research about what I could change, what I could do differently. And so we worked through that and tweaked some things here and there. Sometime in the next week or two, I did like not as long of ride, but I was able to do a 100-mile ride and try some things, and it worked a lot better. So yeah, I guess just taking it in and learning and adjusting along the way, but also being willing to experiment with different products and honestly being really careful about it because there's not that much time to change something if it doesn't work. But being willing to change it if it doesn't work, I guess also it's something to consider.
Amazing. And I know that you've highlighted too, like, don't try something new on race day, obviously. I'm sure, Amy, you
Yeah.
would echo that.
Mhm.
But yeah, thank you for just talking about all the different kind of trials and errors and being willing to pivot and having some days where you're like, I have no idea why that was the best ride of my life. Because I feel like if surely there are other days where you could plan perfectly and it might feel like the most terrible ride.
Yeah.
But Amy, want to give you a
Yes.
chance to kind of speak on Jen's question as well. Thank you so much, Sierra.
Yeah, I mean, I would echo a lot of that. I also would add that, or not add, but kind of just pivot to luckily, I have not had too many stomach issues. Though, I mean, in a marathon, I never want to take all the gels that I have to take, especially because a fun fact about me is I don't like fruit flavors. I am a chocolate only girl or like a flavorless, but I don't like the flavorless. They're not fun. So if you think like 10 plus chocolate gels, you're basically just like eating, like funneling fudge while you're running a marathon. So it's like very fun for the
Gosh.
first couple. After a while, it's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah.
But what I have really dialed over my last couple of years of training is that it took a while for me to get through my head that it is not about like the pasta the night before, the breakfast in the morning, and then the fuel during and after. Like those things all super important. The biggest game changer for me that I have seen is that like this seems so silly, but I have to be eating a lot of carbs every single day, right? It's not Friday night,
Yeah.
Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. And I joke about this with my running friends all the time. I think to the point where they don't even think it's funny anymore. I'm always like, "Hey, we're running a 5K this weekend. Like, should I carb load for it?" Or like last year before a marathon, I joked that I was gonna do like a 3 week carb load, and like it's to the point where everybody's like, "You're really funny." I just like it took me really a long time to get through my head that the fueling is constant. The fueling is the rest day as well. Like, if you have this baseline fueling throughout every single day, and of course, we will tweak it a little bit more Friday night, Saturday morning, Saturday after the run. But if you're baseline fueling your body for what it needs every single day, it's going to be a lot easier, especially if you're having trouble taking down the gel or you know, speaking from experience, waking up at 6 and starting your long run at 6:30, like, yes, maybe it'll be harder for me to get that exact fuel that I needed for that run in that moment. But like my body's got the reserves, it's ready. It's not only relying on what I just had that morning. And so it's just everything becomes
Yes.
easier when I'm constantly fueled.
Yes, we've got those
Yeah.
glycogen stores.
Glycogen stores. My glycogen stores are always ready to go.
She is glycogen rich over here,
I have
ladies
a
and gentlemen.
glycogen like coming out of my ears. I have so much glycogen.
Amazing. And I think you highlighted a really important part about what both of you have to kind of deal with on the regular is that endurance sports require a lot of thinking about food and, kind of shifting that idea that that's not inherently disordered.
Yeah,
However, it also can't be introduced when you're not ready, or else it's very easy to kind of turn that into a new plan or set of rules or diet.
exactly.
So yeah, I'm picking up what you guys are putting down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I just thought I'd add, like, I'm also like, I'm just the same, like, totally like carbs, carbs, carbs. What, like how I eat all the time. I mean, it's just constant eating. And even like when I got to my 200-mile race, and I had this kind of carb loading plan for the week that was a little more than usual. But knowing that I had eaten a lot of carbs already, I got to this point and I was like, I am just tired of eating. Like, and if people who know me would be like, "That's Sierra would never say that," because
Mhm.
like, I've always been a good eater, like, I like to eat, but I truly, like I was just so tired of eating, and I was looking forward to being done with this event, really, so I just didn't have to eat as much for a little while.
Totally. And I think that that's something that think probably Jen and I have both struggled with, maybe with clients. We have the ND many. I feel like a ton of friends and family members and people that I knew wanted to run that this year.
Uh-huh.
And it's so hard when you're not quite ready to do that. One, to fuel yourself. And as a human in the year of 2026, when things are expensive already, I mean, even
Uh-huh.
just like buying snacks, I think is hard for people that aren't training for endurance activities that don't have eating disorders. And so when you add those other layers on top of it, Amy, I'm sure you can directly speak to this, just how much more complicated it can be to have to think about food all the time or eat all the time when that is a huge kind of trigger, right, for an eating disorder.
Totally.
So
Mm-hmm.
complicated path.
Mm-hmm. And I will say, I think that's where my work gets really, obviously, my work is very nuanced, but like that, it's not so black and white as like, I'm out here encouraging everyone to run a marathon. Like, there will be clients that if they're talking to me about things like that, I might be like, hey, so maybe where you're at with your eating disorder is not compatible with a distance that is requiring so much thinking about food. Right. So maybe that like marathon is a goal, and I'm never going to take that away as a goal for you. But if it's really triggering to think about how much fueling you have to do, that's just data for me, right? That's just a little bit of feedback that says like, what if we do a 5K, a 10K, and we play around with how it feels to have yourself adequately fueled for that? And maybe that marathon is for when you can tolerate this amount of thinking about food, because it's exactly what Sierra said. I'm thinking about food constantly. But for me, it's like, I mean, and obviously when we get closer, I will get that fatigue. Right now, though, I'm at the beginning of this marathon block. And like right now, it's kind of fun, right? It's like, ooh, like how can I get even more carbs in? But like we all fatigue from it. And if that's going to be really triggering for you, it's just not where you're at in your recovery right now. And that's okay.
I love that it's a not yet
Yes,
rather
it's a
than
not
like
yet.
never.
Yep.
I'm gonna have to go back and listen to the way you explained it, but the way you explained it was like like it's not compatible yet. Ugh, I think
Yes.
that's such a lovely way to say it, and probably
Yeah.
offers like more hope to clients as well of like, okay, I can
Yeah.
get there, maybe just not at this moment. So
Yep.
that's so
Yeah. Thank you guys both for sharing all these experiences and tips. I feel like I've learned so much and want to know maybe if you guys have any individual practical takeaways for our listeners today.
So, the one thing that I really took away this year in my training was combining real food with my fueling for the race. So, I had a plan with my gels and my drink mix, but I also thought I needed I don't I don't really think of it as like a palate cleanser, but more as like something just to have something different that wasn't a gel, that wasn't like the fruity thing, right? Because I get tired of the fruity stuff also. I'm a chocolate girl as well. So, but
Love it.
so I put in some rice cakes. So the if you aren't familiar with rice cakes, I'm not talking like the crunchy ones that you can buy, prepackaged at the store. But using sticky rice, and you can mix in a variety of things, like they can be savory or sweet. You can kind of do it like a sandwich style with something in the middle, or you can just mix it all together. But I had some of those at I really just had like one each aid station, and that really kind of topped me off, and I feel like it helped my body maybe like not get bored or maybe overwhelmed with all of the fruity stuff. So I would say, yeah, just introducing something that's a real food if you're doing those long distance efforts. Obviously, you have to kind of play with that a little bit and find out what works. But I do think it can be really beneficial because some of that stuff is just so sugary, and it'll just sit with you and make you. And if you are interested to
Yes.
learn more about the rice cakes, there is this company called Scratch Labs, and they do make some endurance
Yes.
fuel and things like that, but they also have a lot of resources with the rice cakes and other recipes and things.
Oh my gosh,
Love
that is so
Scratch.
funny that you said that about rice cakes too, because I'm thinking, oh my gosh, that's Amy's least favorite race food, and it's
Dusty
the store
ass
bought ones,
rice cakes.
just the dusty ass rice cakes. And it's also extremely funny. Both of you on your forms both mentioned sourdough, and so I have to just keep comparing those two because this is simpatico.
yes,
Yes.
Yeah.
perfect fit.
Yes. Love it. Okay, well, I'll add mine quickly before I have to go. But yeah, I think I can't emphasize enough. Obviously, fueling is a very individual thing, right? We have to figure out what's working with our bodies. But I think just the support around fueling. So, like, one, surround yourself with people, social media, just things that you're taking in have to be fuel forward and not how high can I perform, how little I can consume, right? So, like, the people you should be chatting with the people that you run and ride with about, like, what's your fueling source? What do you like? What's working for you, so that you can bounce ideas off, but then also just make sure that you're not taking in any content that's encouraging you to eat less. And then obviously, if you have the time, the resources to see a dietitian, amazing. Highly encourage that. There are also a lot of really, really great endurance oriented dietitians that offer programs where you don't necessarily have to do one on one work. But I did a program last year where I sort of had like modules and just like community resources that really helped me dial in my fueling. And it was just, a program that a really well-informed endurance dietitian put on. So there's a lot of resources out there, and use the resources while you're figuring out internally what works for you. And then I'll also just add that it's really helpful if you make your own sourdough, to just constantly make and eat your own sourdough. But carbs are in my kitchen all the time. They're in
Yes.
my body, they're in my kitchen, they're just all around me.
We love it.
Incredible.
Oh my gosh. We're gonna have to get you ladies back on and like talk about sourdough because
Yes,
I want all the
Just
tips. I want
sourdough.
all the things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
yes.
That
Okay,
is
I gotta hop
amazing.
off, but thank you
All
so
right.
much. I'm so
Yes.
sorry that it took me so long to get on.
That's
No
totally
worries at all. It was so
okay.
nice to meet you.
You're good.
So
Yeah,
nice
nice
to
to
meet
meet
you
you.
guys. Thanks so
Awesome. See
much.
you later, Amy.
Thank you.
Bye.
Well, Sierra, we've got a couple rapid fire questions for you if you have a couple minutes. So I know I picked your brain about the bikes, the specific bikes. Do you have a favorite road, gravel, mountain bike, or is there another type I left out?
Uh, I would have to say right now, definitely gravel. Probably, mainly because it can be a mountain bike, it can be a road bike. If you can only have one bike, it kind of fits across the board. And gravel is just it's always an adventure. So super fun.
Wonderful.
That's awesome. What is your favorite ride snack? And you talked about the rice cakes. Are there anything else? Other options?
So I I don't know that I really have a favorite. Like I have my go-to gels, but I think of those as more of things that I have to have, not really things that I want to have. But I will say, other than the rice cakes, because that was kind of a game changer for me this year, I have to go with Pop Tart.
Love strawberry Pop Tarts are my absolute favorite thing in the entire world. What is your preferred flavor of Pop Tart? I must ask.
I do like strawberry, and I will if I'm getting Pop-Tarts for, like, a pre-race or mid-race kind of thing, I will typically go strawberry, but my favorite has to be the s'mores.
I'm a s'mores
It's
girly as
so
well,
good.
Sierra. Yep,
It's
in the
so good.
toaster.
I was gonna ask if y'all put them in the freezer with the
The
s'mores.
cookie dough kind I do in the freezer.
Cookie dough.
I'll
I
have to
just
try
Yes,
that.
I
discovered,
say this
like,
like
in the
it's
last
been
few years.
years since I've had cookie dough one, but anyway, go ahead, Jen.
Yeah. That sounds I was just gonna say that it's been in the last couple of years that I found out that you could even freeze Pop-Tarts. I was like, What do you mean?" I would do the toaster or
What
just
do you
have them
mean?
plain, so you them so many different ways. Truly.
Fantastic. Yes, and I'm so glad you mentioned, I know this is rapid fire, but the rice cakes, I have not heard them defined, but I have a really cool friend from college that she, like, goes on these hikes and early morning skis and will make a rice ball and, like, put some salmon and avocado inside and then just
Yeah.
pop it up. I think there's maybe, like, maybe a
Interesting.
seaweed wrap around and then just, like, in foil and then just popping it in
Mhm.
her mouth, and, of
Yeah.
course, that would never work for me because I need 4 different sauces to go with it, but I love that we're making food mobile like that.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So cool.
Biggest cycling pet peeve?
Ooh, yeah. So I have been riding bikes a long, long time, and the older I get, the less like anything really bothers me. But I will say, kind of like a general cycling pet peeve is this term we call half wheeling, and so half wheeling is when you're like in a group. So it might be a group ride. Well, I guess it could also be a race, but normally a group run. We do what's like a double pace line situation. And so, like, there'd be two lines of people. The people at the front are kind of blocking the wind for everybody else. But and then you kind of take turns. So you rotate off and people take their turn at the front. But this half wheeling situation is where like one person is just consistently riding half a wheel in front of the person next to them. So it's kind of like this way to push the pace a little bit, but it's also, like a friendly group ride. Like you don't necessarily want to push the pace. So it ends up just being annoying. And sometimes you do it accidentally and, whatever. But other times it's just like, man, I'm just sitting here and there's like a dude half wheeling me. I'm like, I don't want to go any faster than that.
Sure.
But yeah, that's probably, I don't know, just a real general pet peeve across the board.
Sure. That feels
Oh
like
my
in a car
goodness.
too. That would be annoying, right? I'm resonating
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah,
resonating.
yeah. Talk to us about the weirdest thing you've ever eaten on a ride.
I don't really take a lot of risks eating food when I'm riding, but if you have to make like an emergency gas station stop, there could be like a questionable hot dog or piece of pizza that's been sitting there too long. Other than that, yeah, I don't really have any weird ones. It's just like questionable gas station food.
I
Nice.
like that answer. Like, I wouldn't, we should plan ahead. Yeah. Don't
Yes.
try anything
Yeah.
last minute.
Yes.
Right.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience with us today and letting us ask you all questions about all things bikes and cycling. And yeah, we just appreciate getting to know you as well.
That is a wrap on our summer movement series featuring special guests, Sierra and Amy. Thank you so much, both of you, for joining us. And we hope that everyone will be back next week for another episode that you will not want to miss.
If you like what you heard, please follow us on Spotify or subscribe on Apple Podcasts. If you're feeling extra generous, leave us a 5-star rating or a quick review so more people can find our show. You can also follow us on Instagram at stop.collaborateandlistenpod to stay up with the latest podcast news. We'll see you guys next week.
Stop, Collaborate, and Listen is a space for real, honest conversations, but it's not a substitute for individualized care. Episodes may include discussions of eating disorders, mental health struggles, trauma, or other sensitive topics. Please take care while listening. The content shared here is for educational and informational purposes only and should not be taken as medical advice, a diagnosis, or a treatment plan. Listening to this podcast does not create a provider-client relationship, and while we speak from both professional training and lived experience, we're not here in the role of your personal healthcare team. If you're struggling with food, body image, or mental health, we encourage you to seek support from licensed, eating disorder-informed providers who can offer tailored care you deserve.